So today we're going to continue with the sight and scope review for the light class, and this was an interesting one to say the least. In today's video, we're going to take a look at all of light's attachments as well as their removal and see if they are an overall improvement to the weapon, if they enhance a specific trait of the weapon, or if it's just simply up to preference. But before we get started, I'd like to personally say thank you for all the birthday wishes. I'm trying to get back to all of you that commented, and I will sooner or later, but I wanted to say you guys made my day so special, and I'm incredibly honored to make content for such an incredible community. Thank you so much. Anyhow, as usual, if you find this video informative, please smash that like button. It truly helps out the channel, and subscribe for all things the finals. Let's not waste any more time and jump straight into this. So the first weapon I want to go over is the XP54. This weapon has been really popular from season 1 to 3 and is a staple in high elo lobbies. However, with the release of Season 4, the weapon received a nerf to its damage from 18 to 16, as well as the scope having an increase to its magnification, to compensate and give people a reason to use the iron sights. The iron sight does feel really good from 0 to 20 meters, and you can still kill a medium and light fairly easily from 0 to 30 meters. But does it give you a significant difference in performance over the scope? In my opinion, it's up to preference. Because for me, I'm going to prefer the scope, being that the magnification doesn't impede my tracking from 5 to 20 meters. And if you watched any of my master classes, you know that from 0 to 5 meters, I'm more than likely going to be hip firing. In around 30 meters, I can take down a heavy fairly consistently. However, with iron sights, you're going to find it a little difficult to one clip a medium or heavy without a scope at 30 meters. But again, this is just strictly up to preference, such as where you like to take engagements. Because if you're an aggressive player that always likes to close the gap and get into that 20 meter range on a consistent basis, then I think the iron sights would be a better choice. So both options are very good in their own respect, and the slight advantage that the scope will give you is not, in my opinion, significant enough to use over the iron sights every time. Next, we have the M11. And there has been a lot of worry around putting a sight on this weapon because it may make the XP54 irrelevant, which is a pretty valid reason. However, after using it, I don't think that is the case whatsoever. The M11 will still retain its identity as a run and gun HipFire SMG. If you're trying to beat players at 18 plus meters, you're going to need some incredible recoil control, because with the sight beyond 15 meters, the red dot is going to be bouncing radically horizontally no matter how hard you pull down. Now, with that being said, this sight doesn't make the weapon any worse. It truly doesn't. It really enhances the weak point of the M11, which is obviously range, but only by a small margin. I'd say extending its effectiveness up to 17 meters from the previous 15 meters. Because if you didn't know, you can still hip fire and take down a medium and heavy at 15 meters. However, admittedly, I prefer to keep hip firing within 10 meters for the M11. And utilize the sight for anything above that. Because if I do use the sight within 10 meters, what I'm essentially doing is giving myself unnecessary visual recoil and neglect the movement speed that comes with hip firing. So all in all, I do recommend putting a sight on the M11. It doesn't hurt the weapon, it only improves it, while at the same time not changing the way the weapon is meant to be played. It just gives you an option to engage more clearly from 10 to 17 meters if the player is unable to close the distance. Up next, we have the LH1, and I gotta be honest, I'm a little bit torn with this one. With the scope, the LH1 is absolutely nasty at range. If you're holding a position from height, anything from 15 to 50 meters can easily be eliminated. But the only issue I have with it is the reticle sway if you're engaging from 5 to 15 meters. Although not as severe, but just like the pike with a scope, it's a bit of an adjustment getting used to that reticle sway when you're aiming down sights and engaging an opponent just outside of close range. And within those ranges, using an iron sight, even with the visual recoil, is a lot easier to maintain and track the target, and will allow you to be a little more aggressive in those close to mid-range engagements. Now with the scope, besides the pike, is one of the most oppressive weapons from mid to far range, so the LH1 is quite unique in that respect, because there are clear advantages to running the scope or the iron sights. However, if you are willing to get used to tracking with a scope from 5 to 15 meters, or utilize specializations that will allow you to quickly put distance between you and your opponent, such as grapple hook or dash, the LH1 with a scope easily becomes one of the best weapons in the game. So yes, I do absolutely recommend this scope, but this is also dependent on your playstyle and what feels right to you. If you like to get up close and personal and find the visual recoil manageable, then I would go with the iron sights. However, if you prefer to keep distance, then I would go with the scope. Now we go to the V9S. This one I was really excited for, because when shooting the V9S, it was quite hard to see the target when firing at a faster pace, and I thought maybe a red dot would compensate for this. However, the first day I used this sight, it was less than a pleasant experience, because while I had a lot of visual clarity of the target, I was taken back by how much the reticle bounced when I started to fire at a faster pace. Now, even though my experience wasn't great the first day, I'm not the type of content creator to write something off just because I had a bad first impression of it. So I gave it another day, got used to the reticle bounce, and found the right pace. This gun went from average to absurdly powerful, and it's one of the few light weapons that can go toe-to-toe with Heavy's 50 caliber akimbo handguns. And while I do admit it was harder to track from 5 to 10 meters because of the magnification, this was only a small issue, and with a little bit of time I strongly believe that most players like myself will get used to it fairly fast. Now yes, you may be able to engage some opponents at around 30 meters, but for the most part, this weapon is played exactly the same with or without the sight. The major advantage the sight gives you is better visual clarity, to help you maintain the target and keep it centered. So would I recommend attaching the sights on the V9S? In my opinion, absolutely. But at the same time, I can't speak for everyone and their feel for a weapon. So if you're more comfortable using iron sights, then that's what I suggest you use. At the end of the day, you always have to prioritize what feels best for you as a player. If you guys need help understanding the weapons a little more, I have a masterclass guide for both the V9S and the LH1 that will not only show you the ins and outs of the weapons, but also provide you with an in-game training routine that is applicable for both M&K and controller that will drastically increase your skill with the weapon. I have left a link for those in the right hand corner of the screen as well as in the description. Anyhow, that's all I have for you guys today. I definitely want to go over the sights for Heavy, but for some reason they didn't add a sight for the Lewis gun, but for the M60. So I'm just going to have to save that review for the masterclass. Anyhow guys, that's all I have for you today. Let me know how you feel about the sights, if you're enjoying them, if you're not, what sights do you prefer and what weapons. Please, I'd love to hear from you. Peace and love guys, and I'll see you in the arena.